Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I want to welcome you to InterExchange's second webinar in our career guidance series. Today's topic is what area of business should you specialize in? My name is Tammin Nicholson. I'm the program manager for the Career Training USA program here at InterExchange. For those of you who are unfamiliar with InterExchange, we are a nonprofit cultural exchange organization based in New York City. We administer various cultural exchange programs to help students and young professionals undertake meaningful cultural exchange opportunities in the US and across the world. Specifically, the Career Training USA program administers the J1 intern and J1 trainee visa programs. We provide J1 visa sponsorship to candidates who have already secured internships or training programs in the United States. And while a sponsor is required by the US government for anyone seeking a J1 visa, in addition to helping individuals and hosts complete the paperwork needed to get a visa from the US Embassy, we also provide pre-departure and settling in resources. We check in with participants throughout the program to ensure safety, well-being, cultural engagement, and program satisfaction. And like many of you, we've had to reconfigure our lives and our work over the last couple of months. So while we have temporarily paused the issuance of visa sponsorship until it's safe to welcome new interns and trainees to the US, we want to continue to be a resource for students and young professionals seeking professional development experiences and information. To that end, we are continuing to roll out a few webinars that include panels of industry experts to share their experience and advice. As I mentioned, today is our second webinar, and we plan to focus today's discussion on different areas that someone with a general business degree or even a tangent degree may find themselves in once they enter the workforce. So just some quick housekeeping before I introduce our panel. Due to the size of the audience, everyone is muted, but if you have any questions throughout the presentation, just type them into the chat box. We'll do a question and answer at the end, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. So I'd like to start by introducing our panel. First is Ignacio Tolosa, the Senior Manager of Finance and Human Resources at VTTI Seaport Canaveral Corporation. Ignacio is the Senior Manager of Finance and Human Resources for Seaport Canaveral Corporation and also IPOS in the US Virgin Islands. He's also the President of the Board of Petroamerica Terminal, VTTI's terminal in Panama. He holds an MBA in General Management and was Professor of Managerial Accounting and Strategic Planning at the University of Buenos Aires. Before joining VTTI, Ignacio was Senior Manager of the Risk Advisory Services Division at KPMG in Argentina, and he transitioned from VTTI's terminal in Argentina to Florida when operations began in 2010. I'm also joined by Stefan Grunwald, the Director of Product Management at Lutze. Stefan was born in Germany and began his career as a machine building technician for a large manufacturer in Norway. He completed a degree in technical communications at the University of Applied Science and Art. Stefan has over 25 years of experience in automation and has graduated executive programs related to business and innovation management. He is currently Director of Product Management at Lutze. And we're also joined by Sari Gregson, Marketing Manager, also at Lutze. Sari was born in Finland and has a bachelor's degree in foreign languages as well as an MBA. She began her career in the banking sector and then transitioned to sales and customer service for an international power transmission manufacturer. She has over 20 years of experience in marketing, first with the German tool builder in the United States, and for the last 15 years as marketing manager for Lutze. And thank you, Ignacio, Stefan, and Sari for joining us today. My brief introductions don't really do any of you justice, as each of you have distinct and very lengthy backgrounds. Maybe perhaps to get started, could each of you tell us a little bit more in your own words about your career path and the scope of your current role? Sari, maybe we can start with you.
Sure. Thank you very much for the introduction. So I am originally from Finland, and my first cultural exchange was already in high school. I was an exchange student in North Carolina. Then during my studies in college in Finland, I spent 2 different summers in Germany studying at the university there. And then once I finished my studies in Finland, I decided to pursue my MBA and I came to UNC Charlotte. And that is the trip I'm still on. With that, in the late 90s, I took advantage of what the exchange visa gave me. I did the practical training during my studies and then the optional practical training afterwards, which developed into a career with the German machine tool builder. So I myself took advantage of those opportunities a lot already during studies and then early in my career. As you said, for the past 15 years, I've been a marketing manager for Lutze in industrial automation. we are German company and our North American headquarters here in Charlotte, North Carolina. So my tasks are to promote and market our German European products in the United States, to help transition some of the collateral that it works in the USA market. And then our main products here, which are also manufactured in the United States, is to work with our product management and engineering to help do the collateral and marketing of those, to help our sales promote and sell the products. And that is different materials. We do a lot of trade shows, cooperation, marketing co-ops with our distribution partners. Every day is different. A lot is going on, and with also the current situation, things are changing. So it's a very interesting career, and it's exciting to see how the engineering and product management ideas become successful products.
Excellent, thank you. I think that's definitely something that I think we'll get a few questions about, on what your average day looks like, and especially your average day over the last couple weeks. I'm sure it's a little bit different than usual. Stefan,
Yes.
can you tell us a little bit about in your own words, the scope of your role and your experiences as well?
Yeah, so my career beginning was a little different. I actually went to a high school that was focused on business, and then went from there to what we call a college preparatory school in Germany that was also focused on business. But there was always this kind of not knowing which side I like better, the technical side or the business side. I had interest in both. And so when I was done with the college preparatory school, instead of going straight to college, I opted for a practical apprenticeship program in Germany and became a technician in automation. Did that for a little while, and then decided to go back to university and pursued a degree in technical communications. And I looked for that specifically because I was wanting to find something that gives me a good mix of business and maybe a little bit of marketing aspects, but also somehow a technical background. And there wasn't a whole lot in the 90s that was offered in this field. There was this typical program that was basically a business engineering, which I had looked into, but I wanted to do something a little different. This technical communications was at the time a brand new program. A lot of these people went into people who graduated from this program went into IT related fields. Some went into programming, some went into technical writing. I found my opportunity for product management through an internship I had with Siemens in Hanover and in Braunschweig. I went through different departments there. Some of them more business orientated, some of them more technical orientated, and I realized that that there were product management departments that were always sitting right in between, and that was the right career path for me. So after I graduated, I stayed with Siemens for a while, and then decided I wanted to explore the world a little bit and do something different. So I came to the United States on an internship, and my goal was to learn about the basics of selling and how to conduct a business. And I went from a very large organization to a very, very small organization to do that. The happy medium for me is where I'm now, in a mid-sized company. And in my current role, I have still both aspects, actually all kinds of aspects, to be honest, but I would say it's easy for me to characterize and say I have a good blend of business-focused task and technical task, actually plain engineering task, if you will. My current role is focused on trying to bring innovation in a field that is considered maybe a little bit on the different end of technology today. When you speak about technology, then everybody thinks of IT and hardware and networking and software. There is a little bit of this for us in our space that we are in, but it's in the end tangible products. And for me, I like it this way because it's an area where I think I can help bring innovation where people don't expect it. And because for the layman person, they might think that we are specialized in connectivity and cable products for automation. That to say, hey, I don't really know what this is, but if you spend a little bit of time, you find out that there's really a lot of aspects from mechanical engineering, from material science, from some electrical engineering skill is required. So it really gives me a very broad toolkit to work with, if you will.
Excellent. It sounds like it's a great crossover between business and then, like you had, well, basically that's what you said. It's interesting because we do see a lot of interns that wind up learning that they're interested in business from other aspects of an internship and vice versa. So it's interesting that you've been able to have a foot in both ends. Ignacio, I believe that so I know we're having a little bit of technical issues, but I think you should be able to speak. If you unmute yourself, are you able to hear us and speak to us and tell us about the scope of your role as well?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Perfect.
Very good. Thank you for the introduction and for the invitation. As you said, I'm currently in charge of finance and human resources at Seaport Canaveral, which is a fuel storage terminal in the port of Cape Canaveral, right across the waters from NASA. We are part of a global network of terminals. Our company, BTTI, is headquartered in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. And we started not too long ago, but time is flying. So it's already 13 years since the company started in the Netherlands. And I came to the US to join this company from our terminal in Argentina 10 years ago. Actually, last week, it was our 10th anniversary from my family moving here. Going back there, to the beginning of my career, I graduated with a CPA equivalent in Argentina, and I eventually took my MBA in general management over there. The first few years I spent doing external audit and consultancy. And then I joined 3M company in Argentina, but for Latin America. That was my first truly international experience, traveling all throughout South America for a few years, doing what was called corporate auditing. That experience also included 1 year here in the US in Minnesota in the headquarters of 3M. When I went back to Argentina, I took over the director role of supply chain for Argentina and Uruguay. Eventually moved into a retail company that was also part of a global Dutch company by coincidence. I worked there in the IT department doing strategic planning, basically solutions for the supply chain, internet solutions for the supply chain. It was early 2000s, right after the internet bubble. Went back to consultancy with KPMG, doing risk advisory services for a few years. And eventually I joined this company, BTTI, in Argentina, as I said before.
Excellent. So I was going to ask actually, but I feel like each of you touched on it a little bit about previous internship positions and professional development experiences that you pursued early in your career. So maybe instead of just asking you to recap some of those positions, could you tell us about some of those early professional development experiences you had and how they affected your decision to move towards accounting or marketing or product management? We can leave that open to whoever wants to answer. But how did those experiences help kind of guide you to where you are today by letting you learn what you didn't like or what you did really like about areas of business?
I could start. I did an internship at the Central Bank of Argentina, and it was a good first working experience, but I didn't enjoy it too much in terms of this is what I really want to do. And I said, no, I'm not going to work for a bank. But my second job was at the local private bank, by the way, but I only spent there 1 year. But what I did learn from that experience is that really need to be eager to learn. The first few years in your career, particularly, you need to be ready to ask questions. You cannot go home any day without having learned something new. And that's something that I really learned, even though I didn't like the experience too much at the central bank.
Yeah, I think I can second this from my experience that once I had my first internship, I realized that it's a whole different learning experience than what you go through in school. It is very unstructured because now you have to learn on your own terms. So you have to develop a discipline to listen. And what was very helpful for me in my early times is that I have to say I had some really great mentor people in my early times in my internships that have taken the time to show me how they do their work, help me understand processes in the company and why something is really important and how you tie into other groups. And I think the best advice I can give anyone is if you ever have the opportunity to do an internship and there is somebody who is willing to share knowledge with you, make this person your mentor, because it's a fantastic opportunity to learn from someone who is already in the job. And at that time, I was literally feeling like a sponge. Anything somebody threw at me, I was interested in soaking up and learning and trying to apply it. But then I think later in the internship, or maybe even in other internships, I realized that what you learn now is the time you have to apply it. So there has to be some sort of progressing where you move from learn a lot into now take what you learned and apply it, and that will really help you.
And I second that too. And so also, I think it's important to follow what your interests are. I've always had an interest in foreign languages and cultural differences, and that's why I studied first to become a foreign language teacher in Finland. However, realized that I wasn't maybe teacher material, at least when I was young and naive. So I decided that I should use my foreign language skills in international business, and that's how I transitioned to the business world. And it has been a great asset for me to have that intercultural and language knowledges.
I feel like the theme of those responses where there's a little bit of trial and error once you first graduate. You know, it takes a little bit of practice until you realize what you actually want to do. And it's great that you've all had the experience to kind of find a perfect fit or a good specialization for your skill sets and what you're interested in. Stefan, I want to kind of go back to something you had said about how the working world might be a little bit different than school. You know, once you're actually thrown into an environment where you're seeking mentors and kind of learning in a different capacity. Are there any particular skills that you would recommend students work on developing while they're in school that would help them to be successful once they do graduate, once they enter the workforce?
Particular skills, I think, well, from my perspective in the field that I am today, I think the skills that are needed is just openness to use software. You need a broad background or understanding of the software that is used in business. I see sometimes people saying, "Oh, I can do Word." That's basically a given. I think today you got to be able to be good navigating around anything of the Office suite products, whether this is the Microsoft world or some other world. But you got to have a very good understanding of those products. I think software in general, as it relates to the field you're pursuing, you got to be very open in using those, and don't be afraid specializing sometimes. I hear sometimes people, they want to be broad but not really specialized in something. I think it's good to be broad and specialized in a particular area. You can specialize in too many, but if you have a broad understanding of what's important to your role you're trying to pursue, and then pick the 1-2 areas where you say, and this is something I really want to get into and become a specialist. What I found for myself is that once you have this particular niche that you like and that you became a specialist, your career kind of opens up by itself for you, because people will start realizing, hey, this person is really interested in this, so let's help him. or her getting better at it, and that is how you also attract mentors to help you along when they see that there's something you want to excel in.
That's really interesting. I'm glad you touched on that, because that was another question I wanted to ask the three of you. If it, you know, at what point does specialization become necessary? You know, how easy is it to pivot and shift your career, or should you start focusing on specialization a little bit earlier? And that's really interesting to know that that's kind of where you would recommend start early, gain those mentors that fit. Sari and Ignacio, do you agree that kind of working on specialization that interests you early on is something you would recommend for a career path?
I can take it. I do agree with that, but there's always a but. If and I think that three of us are pretty much have been in the labor market for the same number of years, and we have seen so many careers stop when they were too specialized. So you need to always keep iterating towards you want to go, but always being flexible enough to switch along the way. The change in the past 25, 30 years has been tremendous in any industry. And only look at the past few weeks. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow in any of our industries. So if you are too special for something, you may get stuck at some point in time. So you always need to be very good at what you do, but open to changes. I started my career thinking I was going to be an accountant for most of my career, but then I am really happy that at some point I said, okay, I will accept this opportunity in an area that I didn't have a clue, because supply chain I didn't know much other than from being an auditor, and I really enjoyed that, and that really helped me later on in my career. And then you combine and you become specialist in more than one, as Stefan was saying. You need to have a broader view before you can decide to be a specialist.
I would also add to that if you work for a very large company, often they might have more specialized roles as well. Working for a mid-sized company, we're about 40 employees. We wear many hats and do a lot of different things, which also keeps every day very interesting. So you have a broader knowledge of how the company operates in different departments, but you specialize in your tasks.
I think that makes sense. It's a good balance, staying specialized in your tasks, but also making sure that you do have that backup plan in case there's something else that you would like to shift to in the future. On that topic, one thing that I think a lot of recent graduates in business or soon-to-be graduates are probably contemplating, how necessary is an MBA? Would you recommend going for an MBA immediately after someone finishes their bachelor's degree? Should they work for a little bit? And I know, Sari, you have an MBA, and Ignacio as well. Did you take some time off before going back to school, or did you both go directly into your MBA? And would you recommend that path?
I can tell, so I worked in between, and I felt that that was extremely important. And this was also how most of the MBA students were in my program. They all had work experience and were working while getting their MBA. So I think that would make more sense. So you have that, because a lot of the projects and experience you pull out from your work.
Yeah, I think I fully agree, and I did work 3-4 years before. Actually, it was more, because in Argentina you could work while you were in the undergrad school still. So it was probably
Mm-hmm.
6 years before I started the MBA. And I always remember we were probably 25, 30 people in the class. And there were 3 or 4 kids that went straight from undergrad to the master's. They were only listening, or mainly listening. They learned a lot as well, but I think you get more juice out of that lemon if you do experience the real work before. Having said that, and I asked my oldest son today if he wanted to join and see this, because he graduated from undergrad in December and went straight into his master's now, which it has become a more common offer for schools, and I may make a non so politically correct comment here, but education is becoming more and more a business. So for the guys participating in this webinar, that's something to keep in mind as well. When you choose where to do your master's, you need to keep in mind, is this a business for me or for the school? And try to do something that at least will ensure that you do some internship in between whenever you have a break, so you can get more out of the masters.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Continue to build up those professional experiences so you have something to also contribute to the discussion when you go back to school, and you can put it into context a little bit. Stefan, I wanted to ask, because I feel like we were talking about this before the webinar started, and you definitely have a pulse on this within your role as product manager. Do you see any changes or trends emerging in innovation? Well, I mean, that's the area of innovation, but do you see any trends emerging that will impact current students and recent graduates as they begin to enter the workforce in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think the biggest trend that I see in the space of automation, at least, and I think it's happening in many others, is digitalization. I think today these kind of tasks are completely different than they used to be maybe just 20 years ago. And for some of the people here, 20 years maybe sounds like a long time, but believe me, at some point in your career, you're going to look back at this and find out it's not all that long. But over the course of 20 years, I think what changed is the way we communicate today. I mean, we're having this meeting in a digital way that wouldn't have been possible so easy 20 years ago. We do product development differently today. Everything goes towards 3D modeling. Digital twins is a big topic, where instead of developing a product that's tangible and they hold in your hands, it's created completely in a digital system, and the digital twin can do anything the real product will do. So you can test and prototype products today much faster, and put it even into applications and see how it performs there. I think even on the business side, I would say today digitalization has become a big topic, because before we engage in certain activities, we want to simulate data and see, hey, are we developing a product just because we have a good feeling about it, or are we developing a product because we have data about a market trend and the development in the industry that we want to cater to? So on the business side, digitalization is there as well. And then I throw out one last big aspect that's big for our industry. It's the industrial Internet of Things is really changing the world. Today, we're not producing products anymore like we used to. Machines are now talking to machines, and the data that's coming out of these machines is being analyzed. I think data analytic is probably a topic that everybody should be paying attention to.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good to know. I feel like data and business are pretty much one and the same in a lot of positions, because there's so much overlap, and it's very important in order to stay on top of everything that's going on. Sorry, we had a webinar last week where we had a couple of public relations professionals, and they were discussing how the coronavirus pandemic has really just altered a lot of communication as far as marketing and outreach. How have you seen your day-to-day marketing initiatives and activities affected with the current pandemic?
Yes, I've seen a big change. First of all, I work now 100% remotely from my home office, and we participate in trade shows, large trade shows, and we have co-op events with our distribution partners. Everything has been canceled. Right now, I don't have anything until beginning of September. That's the first event. So everything March through August has been canceled. So those companies that have flexibility have transferred a couple of their events from this face-to-face exhibit and seminar type of thing to an online webinar, half a day long event, and have been extremely successful. So I've been helping on supporting those. And many of our distribution partners and our sales are doing webinars, more social media marketing, press releases, online email campaigns, which we've all done before the COVID-19 pandemic as well, but there is definitely an increase towards that.
Thank you. That makes sense. Kind of on par with what we had heard last week as well. But there's a lot of changes and innovations that are required.
Mm-hmm.
Ignacio, how I mean, your role includes a lot of people management, and I know in the intro I mentioned how you're overseeing different sites in different countries. How has communication been affected either in the last few weeks from coronavirus or just general trends overall in an internationally based position like you have?
Yes, it changes every day. So obviously, much more in the past few weeks, but with technology, as we have been discussing before, it seems to be easier. It's always a challenge when you talk about people and dealing with people, because we are seeing each other's faces now. It's not the same. It's not going to be the same after this pandemic, when we will probably not be shaking hands anymore for at least some time. So, and that has an impact on communication, because we say more with our bodies than what we say with our words, always. So you need to be very careful, particularly from an HR perspective. In HR, you can only be wrong. So if you do the right thing, it's what it should happen. But then, if not, then you're making mistakes. So you need to be very careful, because people are really being affected by the pandemic in different ways. We are not. I'm far from being a psychologist, so you need to try to use these communications media to be close enough to try to feel for everybody, and then discuss. It's also a challenge for teams to work together, even though technology helps. But work in these times as a team is key to discuss ideas on how to better manage the situations. In our particular case, our industry is essential because we import fuels into Florida. Even though demand is at the bottom, historical bottom, we are still supplying all the gasolines, all the jet fuel for this area. So we keep our operations and maintenance teams working at the terminal, and all the office we're working from home. So you need to be very careful in ensuring that everybody is coping well with the pandemic, and very careful on how you structure your messages.
A lot of moving parts right now. I have a bunch more questions that I'd like to ask, but before I continue, I just want to toss it over to my colleague Fatima. Fatima, have we had any questions that have come in via the chat box that we can stop and X now from our audience?
Yes, we do have actually one question from Garrick. He did ask, he's like, can you advise on how to succeed on the job interview? And what kind of knowledge and skills do you wish interns already had on day one of the internship?
I think we can probably leave that open to whoever wants to answer, or all three of you. I feel like you all three must have great feedback on that question.
I can get started if you will. What have impressed me the most in interviews, particularly with internship candidates, is because they all bring some knowledge in their background, but they do not necessarily bring the same attitude. So the first thing that I look into the candidates is, okay, what is the main reason that you and I are talking now? So what is driving you? And that applies for any position, not just internship. So what energy are you showing? So one of the interns that we hired, she just knocked at our door. This was probably the way 50 years ago, and nowadays you don't expect someone to bring their resume to your office, especially when you're in the middle of nowhere. But she knocked at the door, and that opened the door for her. So that little thing. Then there is a lot that you need to show, because it's not just that will get you a position, but attitude, the interest, the readiness to ask questions, to challenge the status quo. Those are the things that I really look more into.
Yes, I would agree with all of this. I think some of what I'm looking for when people come for an interview or when they reach out to me, whether it's an internship or a full-time position, is the motivation. Especially with interns, I look very much for how motivated they are. Is it because they looking to put something on their resume, or is it something they really want to do because they're passionate to do something like this? And you can tell. I made the experience, I've been hosting interns here over the last 15 years or so at Lütze, and some came probably more with the intention of getting it on their resume. Others came because they truly had a passion for what they were doing. I think both types got something out of this, but the ones that really are passionate about and found maybe that niche that they want to go in already, they typically got something longer lasting out of it, whereas the other one might have gotten something else out of it as well, I would think. But my point is, if you go to an interview, be yourself, show that you're motivated. Don't try to be somebody who you are not, but it's important that the person who is interviewing you feels that you're passionate and motivated about the role you're coming to talk about.
I think that's excellent advice for any field.
I don't think I have anything to add. Those were great answers.
Great. Well, sorry, I'll toss this question at you then. What do you wish you knew immediately after your own graduation? What advice would you give to yourself if you were just graduating after the experience that you've had in the 15 years as marketing manager?
That's a
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I know. So what? Ask me again. Rephrase it again. What did I wish I knew that I know now?
Exactly.
I'm sure there are many things. What did I wish back then? I think what I have gained over years is confidence. Those are some of these interpersonal skills that you don't have in the beginning. I've gained a lot of confidence. I've learned how to present. Those are things, obviously nowadays at school you can take presenting classes, you can learn how to do great presentations and talk to the audience and not to the screen behind you. I learned that the hard way during my career. So that's one of the things probably that comes first to my mind.
Excellent. That makes sense. I feel like that's not something you can necessarily learn in a book. You have to just learn through practice.
Mm-hmm.
Stefan, you mentioned the number of interns that you've hosted over the years. What projects and roles have interns gone on to do after they've completed an internship at Lutze?
Yeah, it's interesting. So some of them actually stayed in the area what they came here for as part of their internship. So a few of them are today in product management or have made it into management roles in product management themselves. Some decided this wasn't really what I was looking for. I want to be in other industries. That is sometimes hard to hear, but I think it's a reality. I think when we host internships, we do this with the idea of there's basically two motivations for us why we do this. One is my personal one. I had great internships when I was young and I had found great mentors, and one of those mentors has once told me and said, the best thing you can do with what you gained here is pay it forward and try to help others to do this in their life. And I really find that very rewarding for me too. If you can host somebody and you can help them to figure things out, what it is they want to do in life. So that being said, if somebody learns in my department, well, there are some aspects that maybe aren't right for me, then that is a perfectly valid experience of an internship too. So in fact, I had one person, I will not forget this. She came to me after the internship and it wasn't all the way towards the end. And she said, hey, I learned now that tangible technical goods aren't my thing. I want to be in the service industry where I can be around people. And she did a second internship later with Lufthansa where she was able to get that experience, and that was a great thing too. So sometimes an internship is there for you to be the stepping stone into that particular career. Sometimes it is there to show you what you like and what you don't like, and those are both perfectly valid experiences.
Perfect, thank you. I see a few more questions have come in, and I don't want to hog all of our time, so I want to make sure we get a chance to answer some of these questions. Just a reminder for anyone, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat box, and then if you could also just reference who you're directing your question to, if it's to someone in particular. But Fatima, do you want to read off some of the questions that have come in?
Yes, we have a question from Diana. She did ask, do you think it's better for someone who is just entering the job market to wait for the best internship opportunity in the field they dream to work in, or to accept an internship or job offer even though it is not the specific field they are interested in?
And I think that one is also for anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I tried to, okay.
Go ahead.
I try to take a quick answer on this because I think it goes somewhat to what I said just a minute ago. I think ideally, of course, you would find an internship in your area of interest. But if you take an internship that is maybe not 100% of a match in the field of interest, I would give you the advice, approach it with an open mind and give it your best shot and show that you're motivated to do this. Because if I said in my earlier answer, two experiences are valid. It's valid to come out of this internship and say, hey, I found my career stepping stone, but it's also valid to say, hey, this internship gave me an idea to learn what I like and what I don't like. So I wouldn't necessarily advise not to do it if it's not your first choice. But what I would say is that if you do choose an internship that is not necessarily your first choice, make sure you do it with all the motivation you can muster for this, because you don't want to do it because it became the only other choice that you had. Then it's probably not worth to spend your time on there. You will not leave this with a good experience, most likely.
Excellent, thank you. Ignacio, did you have a response to that question as well?
Yes, I think it's always a combination. You should always strive to get what you think is best for you, but be open to what is somewhere in between. So taking whatever is there just because you want to do an internship may not be the best decision, but even that at one point could be the start of your real career. So be open to what is there. We are going to be facing now times where employment will be more scarce, for sure. So if you get too picky about what you want to do, you may end up doing nothing. With that said, always strive to get what, and that not only for the internship, for any position in the future. Always look for your dreams in your career, and you will get there.
Ignacio, I think you touched on something that's probably on the front of everyone's mind right now about maybe employment being more scarce. Does the coronavirus pandemic alter the advice you would give to a recent graduate in comparison to maybe what you would have said back in January or December of last year?
Well, that's a reality, and we don't know yet how it will look like. But in some industries, for some professions, the unemployment rate here in the U.S. was as low as 1% a couple of months ago. That's not going to happen anymore. So there's going to be much more competition for any position that is open. In the finance sector, in the financial accounting sector, in this area of Central Florida, there were one candidate per every 2 positions that were open 2 months ago. That's probably going to flip. So you can still be picky about what you want to do, but you need to differentiate from your competitors in trying to get a job as soon as you can. You cannot just sit there till the pandemic is over and the times improve and whatever luck may bring you.
That makes total sense. Fatima, were there any other questions that we had from the audience?
Yes, we do have another question from Bober. He said, what do you think about what should students pay more attention to while they're enrolled in university? Should they focus more on learning new skill sets or gaining new experiences through internships, or both? And how can international students apply for USA companies once they graduate university?
So I can maybe give an answer for the first one. I think my personal experience is a good mix of experience in the field and experience in the school, and I'm very grateful for this. I think in the German education system had always been more of a dual system where they try to give you a school education but also a practical education no matter which direction you took. Today, I see in some of the interns that are coming that there has been a little bit of a change where people are trying to get through the school education as quickly as possible. It seems almost like some sort of competition. How young am I be able to graduate with my undergrad or master's degree? My advice is, if you are being given the opportunity to gain practical experience in whatever shape that is, whether this is a short or long internship, whether this is you taking a semester on your own and trying to find something at a company, or maybe even a hiatus of school where you say, hey, instead of going straight for my master's, I'm gonna try to do a trainee position maybe for a year or so and then decide if I'll go back. I think all those are valid choices you can make in your life. For me, as someone who is hiring people, I can say I've had experience both students that have just graduated and had only a university and schooling background to this point, and some that had practical experience. The ones that had a little bit of practical experience before are typically faster in finding their way around in certain etiquette in office, how you do certain things, being more independent. For those who did not have that experience, it usually takes a bit longer, but they will eventually catch up. A lot of it has to do also with personality. So I don't necessarily think that getting the practical experience is a complete must, but I would recommend it if you have the opportunity. It will help you in your finding your career.
Awesome, thank you. So I know we're just about out of time. Maybe one more question before we do wrap up. And I wanted to ask this because I feel like all three of your answers might be distinct given your specialties. Are there any websites or publications or general resources that you would recommend to students or recent graduates that they should utilize as they begin careers in their specialization that would make them stand out or become more knowledgeable in the field? Sari, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, there are many different marketing organizations and websites. Marketing is such a broad term, you can be product marketing, marketing strategy, PR, trade shows, events, now social media, digital media. There is so many specializations within marketing, many organizations around that. There are publications also that both print and online that specialize in the same. And to just touch quickly back on the previous question, I think most universities also have international programs where they can help the students find internships, international internships, looking into, if you know the industry that you're interested in, find those companies online and research if you can get, if there's a local branch, and then try to get the internship also that way, and using organizations that specialize in international exchange.
That's a great point. We do see a lot of interns that will intern at the U.S. branch of a company that's in their home country, and that's an easier way of finding that opportunity because there is that pre-existing link, whether it's from their university or from the organization that's actually in their country.
Mm-hmm.
Stefan, how about you? Are there any websites or publications or general resources you would recommend for product management and innovation?
Yeah, okay, so for product management innovation, there are some, but I don't know that there's necessarily one all-encompassing website. I think the advice I would give is the area you're interested in. Try to see if there's associations, join them, especially for students. Oftentimes these associations offer free memberships. And then I would also maybe consider taking a certification program. So for example, if you want to get into the field of product management, there are certification programs for product management. There are certification programs for project management, which I think project management is really a big topic in any field today, whether you decide you want to be later in business, in hands-on technical field, or maybe an IT related field. Project management is, in my opinion, one of the key factors in what makes a company successful. If you have good project management, you will be more successful in most jobs today. But this is especially true for product management, because everything, when we develop a new product, it is a project, and then that has to be handled as a project, and it has to be driven forward. So that is one particular area I would point out.
Thank you. Excellent. And Ignacio, we'll give you the last word. What are your recommendations?
So I would say three things. You need to be curious, first of all, but curiosity will bring you in internet world, will bring you to tons of information that will be overwhelming. So you need to also be resourceful and open-minded. Reach out to your network and learn from them what has worked and what has not worked for them. Try to, when you are looking for an internship, you cannot send an email to blind copying many contacts. You need to try to address it to whomever you want to talk to, and then do your homework first, do your research, look at the industry that you like, and then understand that industry. So you will have something to talk about when you get that interview. And then you will probably land that job that you are dreaming with.
You can make that impression that you were talking about in your story earlier, doing something a little bit more unique instead of just a blank email to everyone, and then you have a great talking point once the interview comes up. So I see that it's 4 o'clock, at least in New York. We are just about out of time. Ignacio, Sari, and Stefan, thank you again for making time to share your insight. I learned a lot, so I can safely speak for the audience when I say that this is a very helpful webinar. For anyone that did tune in late, we'll send a copy of the full webinar to everyone who registered prior to the start, so you'll get the full recording. And as a reminder, we'll continue this series with other fields. We'll send out messaging in the next few weeks as we confirm additional webinar details. And we'll also send up a survey to the audience. So if you'd like to let us know what other topics or maybe specializations would be beneficial as far as follow-up webinars, we can start to work on those. Thanks again, everyone. Be well and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go have a great day. Bye.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Nice meeting you guys.